Love on the Planets, and I'm Margaret Gray in Dublin.
And I'm Armand Diaz in New York.
So Armand, this is the week of December 4th. What's your general feeling of kind of an overview of I guess, the energies for the week?
Well, this is the last week of about a month, really, where Neptune is the dominant planet. Neptune stationed a couple of weeks ago. He was square to the full moon last weekend, and now on December 3rd, and now he is going to be, or Venus is going to come along and square him towards the end of the week, and that's kind of the peak of the Neptunian activity, or the tail end of the Neptunian activity, actually. So I think that, it's another week of like there being a mixed bag. We have Mercury retrograde, which is also going to add a little bit of confusion. So I feel that it's definitely and Chiron stations in Pisces.
So it's really a lot of it's a very emotional kind of climate for relationships, isn't it, at the moment? I mean, and on the one hand, we could describe it as romantic because it does have that potential flavor. But also, I think within the confusion, there can be a lot of really not knowing, what's going on in my relationship, or what kind of relationship do I want, or who do I want to be in a relationship with, or should I make a move or not make a move? So it sounds like we're kind of, it's a little bit like just snorkeling around when there's lots of the water is a little murky. We can't really see where we're going.
I always think with Neptune, I've been saying it for a month now, things usually look a lot better or worse than they otherwise would. And, you can get your hopes way up and you can get your hopes really far down. And it's probably, it's a problem of proportion. And with Mercury retrograde, in addition to the Neptunian confusion, we might be operating on, bad information.
Well, there's two big things with Mercury this week. And of course, when we're talking about Mercury, we're talking about communication. And communication is key in any relationship. So when anything's going on with Mercury, it really affects all of our relationships, from literally going to the grocery shop and dealing with whoever we're dealing with there, to driving along to, intimate relationships with our significant other. And the big thing is, of course, that Mercury retrograde is conjunct Saturn yet again. Now, we had that on November 27th, on Monday, November 27th. So this is the second time it does that. And in that, it also trines Uranus. And, if people want to go and have a look at the blog we put on our Facebook page, we describe how that can be incredibly confusing, because sometimes it can be really interesting information that suddenly comes through. Other times it can be we get really frustrated with each other and kind of a little bit intransigent, because we don't quite know what's going on. So that's really a day to look out for, Wednesday. Plus it's sextile Mars, also the Mercury, which adds a little bit to the maybe, impatience, wanting to take action, yet Mercury's retrograde. And also Mars is sextile Saturn. So all in all, that feels like maybe the most challenging day of the week, I would say, in terms of relating to others. What do you think, Armand?
Yeah, I think it'll build on Tuesday into Wednesday. The early part of the week is liable to have, essentially Mercury stationed conjunct Saturn and trine to Uranus. I mean, that's, because it's within a week. So there is this kind of, stop and go energy. Uranus just wants to get moving already, and Saturn is ready to put up the stop sign, and Mercury is also kind of stopped. So I think that there is this kind of mixed message. It sort of irons out, I think, a lot of issues that are going to iron out in early to mid-January when it goes forward, when Mercury goes forward over these points. But yeah, I just feel that there could be a lot of sort of frustration that can build in communication. There can be some difficulty being clear about things.
Which doesn't help with the holiday season, because I think that can already be stressful for for all relationships, because there's a lot of pressure. There's financial pressure, there's, pressure of time, pressure of, what to do over the holidays. People's loneliness comes up, all kinds of emotions come up. So with this mixture of Neptune and this Mercury, it's not easy. Now, we haven't mentioned the really big thing that's happening, of course, for relationships, which is Mars moving into Scorpio. So that's really huge, because Mars into is Scorpio has, we're back into some of that really deep scorpionic energy that we had left a few weeks ago, which is really intense. When we say deep, we mean it's intense. It demands something. So it really digs underneath the surface. So at the same time that there's all this confusion going on, at a deeper level, there are underlying issues that are really surfacing, I would imagine, in all relationships. Would you agree, Armand?
Yes, well, Mars goes into Scorpio early on Saturday, and Mars in Scorpio, especially through the weekend when he's at the very beginning, Mars in Scorpio is very self-protective. That's one of the things that is really, really key with Mars in Scorpio. But before Mars goes into Scorpio, he's going to be at the very end of Libra, where it's, this is a little bit more of like the formalities of relationship. And so there could be this sort of sense of, where are we? Let's get it all straight on paper, as it were. And then when Mars goes into Scorpio, we get a little bit more emotional and perhaps a little bit more reactive. And I think reactivity is the thing. With Chiron stationing earlier in the week too. I mean, Chiron and Pisces, talk about, opening up and potentially healing, but there's a lot of potential for emotional wounds and so on to be quite sharp at that time. And Mars going into Scorpio is, perhaps not exactly going to help the matter. So I think that, it's another one of those weeks where the feeling is maybe we need to be a little bit self-protective.
Yes, and also the other side of Mars and Scorpio is passion. There can be immense passion. So, in a relationship that's working well, if we're communicating, trying to communicate clearly, there can be a lot of passion. The flip side of that is that also addictions can come to the surface, and that mixture of Mars and Scorpio and the very Neptunian energies, there is a risk of kind of addictions, both within relationships or also just addictions to substances, which come up in relationships, as well as jealousies. Mars and Scorpio can be incredibly jealous. So if there's an underlying issue of control in a relationship, and if a couple haven't learned how to deal with the jealousies that come up, of course, they're par for the course in a relationship, but they need to be somewhat contained, channeled, communicated in a way that's not harmful. That may certainly come to the fore over the weekend.
Oh, very, very much so. I think the combination of the Chiron stationing in Pisces, the overall Neptunian confusion, Mercury retrograde, so we may be getting some bad information or misinterpreting it, and then Mars hitting that very self-protective sign of Scorpio. Sure, it's actually a recipe for jealousy. It's a recipe for paranoia. It, at an extreme, it really is.
And what I would say is, to be careful, particularly with couples, it's really a week to just watch what everybody says, to just be a little gentler, a little more sensitive, and it just, to really check with each other. Did I really understand you correctly? So if in doubt, rather than go off and be paranoid or whatever, really ask somebody and have a conversation. So communication is key, as gently as possible. And at the weekend, maybe do something that's kind of just easy. Maybe just go out for a nice walk or go see a nice movie or something. Maybe a thriller or something to do with passion or whatever. That might work.
Not everyone's going to tip over to the side of extremes either way. Most of us are going to be on an even keel anyway, it's just the potential for what can be out there. And it's a great idea to go have some fun. So then we'll see you next week after you've had your fun.
Take care, Armand. Bye-bye.